Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michal Kaczmery, and on behalf of AmCham Slovakia, I would like to welcome you to our webinar today. It's my pleasure to welcome our two speakers, Silvia Belovičová and Svocák from Squire, Patton, Boggs, who will be morning. Welcome. They will be guiding us through the webinar today, which will focus on public loans and guarantees for especially small and medium enterprises during the current COVID crisis, which we believe is a very current and a very important topic these days. And they would like to bring the latest updates and information about how you, our member companies, can benefit from the tools and financial schemes designed to support companies during these difficult days. Silvia is a partner at Squire, Patton, Boggs. She's leading the finance and restructure insolvency team in Slovakia and has many years of experience in the finance sector and banking sector, working with local and international firms in Slovakia. Richard is an associate with Squire, Patton, Boggs, and also focuses, besides it also focuses on employment issues. So we're glad that they are with us today. Before handing the word over to Silvia and Richard, I would like to just mention a few rules that we would like you to observe, please. One thing is to keep your microphone muted during the webinar. Also keep your videos off to ensure better streaming quality for our speakers. If you have any questions, and your questions are more than welcome, please use the chat feature during their presentation, or once the presentation is completed, there'll be space for also verbal questions that you can use when you unmute and ask a question. So the webinar is supposed to take approximately 60 minutes. There will be a presentation followed by Q&A session. So feel free to ask any relevant questions to Silvia and Richard. With that being said, I would like to now turn your attention to our speakers. Silvia, Richard, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Michal. Thank you, AmCham, for hosting this webinar, and everyone for joining this morning and listening to the topics that we would like to present. We hope that this seminar will be useful. That once we end, you will learn some information how to get additional liquidity in this very difficult situation. So what we will talk about in the first part, we will address a deferral or postponement of loan payments of principals and interest on loans provided by commercial banks. Then we will talk about the new feature, the new measure introduced by Act 67 2020, and which is the state guarantees, and I call it the interest rate subsidies on the loans provided by Slovak Investment Banka and EXIMBANKA. And then my colleague will speak about the program anti-corona guarantee provided by Slovak Investment Fund and National Development Fund out of the structural funds of the European Union. Richard will talk about the cooperation between the SCI and the commercial banks. We will also touch upon the European programs and funds available there. We will also briefly discuss the funds provided by European Investment Bank Group. And if the time allows, we will also touch upon very briefly, and if you will be interested, on the temporary protection from insolvency. So let me start first, with the deferral of interest payments. I don't know, you see that? So yeah, one more slide, please, Michal. So the first measure we're going to talk about is this postponement or deferral of payments on loans of commercial banks. This tool, as Michal mentioned, is available to small and medium-sized enterprises, which are enterprises with up to 250 employees, with annual turnover up to 50 million or annual balance of 43 million. Don't be puzzled by the act using the term small employer. This term stands for all the SMEs, micro, small, and medium-sized employers. So this measure actually allows you to apply with your bank for deferral of payments of either interest or both principal and interest up to the period of 9 months, so from 1 to 9 months. This loan is this period starts to run on the date of the next due payment. So let's say your next due payment. Your next installment is due on the 30th of May. So if you apply tomorrow, these 9 months start to run on the 30th of May. However, if you already failed to pay your April installment, which was due, let's say, on the 30th of April, then, 31st May, 30th April, then this 9 months period starts to run already on the previous, the already defaulted installments. Please keep in mind that you can't be in delay with payment of your installments for more than 30 days, because that would disqualify you for from this measure. Also, another reason where bank can refuse to grant you this postponement is when you would default with payment of another loan in excess of 100 euro, and this default would be already occurring on as of the February 29th, 2020. And then there are other conditions, like you have not filled in properly the application, and there's some other information missing. But this procedure is pretty straightforward. We checked, and all of the banks have information about this possibility on their websites. The application forms are also usually on the websites, so you can just print it out, click, tick the information, declare solemnly that you are the small and medium-sized entrepreneurs, that your financial difficulty results from the COVID pandemic, and just apply. The bank has 30 days to notify you that there was something wrong or missing in your application. And once you file complete application, then the bank has another 30 days to approve your application. We believe that the banks are not using this 30 days window because really it's not very practical to actually wait 2 months with processment of the application. We had the similar webinar last week for some real estate companies, and when we checked, none of them, it was over 20 companies, and none of them has so far applied for the postponement, which I don't know why, but I don't know how promoted or how publicized is this information on availability of postponement. There's one more limitation, and this deferral is not available for credit cards and for overdrafts. So what happens once you have this 9 months postponement of payments is obviously that you don't have to pay the due installments within this 9 months period, but obviously one day after this 9 months period is over, you will have to repay everything back. I checked, for example, on the website of Slovenská sporiteľňa, and there, if you ask for the principal and interest deferral, you pay the interest on the next due date of interest payments after this 9 months period, and the principal is spread it over additional 9 months added to the final due date of payment. I believe that these conditions are depending on how the banks will deal with it, because the law doesn't address this way, how and when these deferred payments, should be repaid. So now I will be moving on to the state guarantees, and I call it interest rate subsidies provided by the states on the loans extended by Slovenská záručná rozvojová banka and EXIMBANKA. Currently, we understand that there's allocated like 50 million for these guarantees. I believe, based on the information that's available with respect to SEH program, that there's allocation of 80% to the guarantees, and 20% is for the interest rate subsidies. The loans that SZRB and EXIMBANKA have the following parameters and terms. They are available to SMEs, so that's one condition, that you have to qualify again to be an SMEs. The loans are available for up to SZRB from 10,000 to 350,000 euro. EXIMBANKA loans are in the amounts from 100 to 500,000 euro. The purpose of the loan is really working capital investments, operational. You can either pay your outstanding payments on social and health insurance. So that's good, because the other instruments do not allow you to cover these debts from the loans. They are provided for the period of 3 years. There's a 1-year deferral for the repayments of the interest and principal. And there's a fixed rate interest rate, 4%, which obviously in combination with the interest rate subsidy gives you a interest-free loan. You have to apply for this bonification of interest or subsidy 1 month prior to the end of this 12 months deferral period. And there are 2 conditions you have to meet in order to qualify for this interest rate subsidy, and that's you can't be in delay with social insurance and health insurance payments for more than 1 month, and also you have to maintain the job rate, not annual, but average jobs that you have in the period of 12 months prior to filing the application for the loan. So that you have to keep in mind. Also, there are other conditions, who can apply for the loan, and that's again no outstanding payments on social insurance and health insurance for more than 180 days. You also have to be in business for SZRB loan for 1 year, 1 full accounting year. For EXIMBANKA, it's 2 entire accounting periods. And also for EXIMBANKA, you have to have part of your business for export. It doesn't say the percentage, how much. So I understand that it's going to be on case-by-case basis. There's some discretion of EXIMBANKA. Also, there are other. If you move forward, Michal, with the presentation, there are some financial criteria that SZRB has. It's slide 10. Yeah. And these, I would assume, those EXIMBANKA has similar ones. It's slide 10. So if you can move a little bit forward, this is the SMEs definition. These are the terms which we discussed, and the next slide is going to be these are the who can apply, and one more. These are the financial criteria, kind of for the double entry bookkeeping entities. And I understand that EXIMBANKA has similar ones, but we were not able to find them. So EXIMBANKA loan, as I said, it's kind of the same. So I think we can skip the next slide because we touched upon that. The state guarantee is provided up to the 80% of the outstanding principal amount. So basically, this is that's why no further security collateral is needed from the debtor. Michal, you can move on. Yeah, these are actually the 2 instruments, up to 4% interest subsidy, and then the state guarantee. So, which makes it kind of a nice instrument. We try to find out from both entities what is the amount of applications at the moment. They do not keep the statistics, so we know. But for SZRB started providing these loans on April 20th. EXIMBANKA on April 27th, and obviously the sources are limited, so and it's provided on a first a come first serve basis, so you should really not hesitate too long. There's also an expectation that similarly as in, for example, in Czech Republic, the amount 50 million will be increased and more funds will be coming into these programs, hopefully. I think one signal is also a new program that has been introduced yesterday, and that's also aimed not only at the SMEs but also at big entities. I think I exhausted, my topics. Now is Richard's turn, and he will talk about these particular programs that the Slovak Investment Holding put in place, and the one that actually should kick in coming days, and also the European programs. So thank you very much for your attention, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Silvia. Thank you for the introduction. So to briefly discuss the topics of the Slovak Investment Holding anti-corona guarantee, the state guarantees that were announced last Thursday, and also various European Union measures that were introduced in respect of the coronavirus situation. So to start off with Slovak Investment Holding, as many of you have surely noticed, it was one of the pioneer institutions to introduce measures aimed at combating the economic impacts and economic fallout. Not sure if you can hear me, but Michal, could you go to the next slide?
This is better, Richard. Thank you. This is better now. Please stay close to the microphone, please.
Yes. So if you can move to the next slide. So as basically I tried to clarify in the beginning, Slovak Investment Holding is one of the pioneering institutions in Slovakia, which introduced the measures aimed at actively combating the negative economic fallout of the coronavirus pandemic. What Slovak Investment Holding unveiled, firstly, is a form of an anti-corona guarantee program with a total value of 38 million that is scheduled to expand to 57 million euros. Basically, the aim of the program is to establish cooperation with leading banks in the Slovak Republic. So far, the major Slovak banks have already signed agreements with Slovak Investment Holding, but not all Slovak banks are partaking in this program as of yet. Parameters of this program is that Slovak Investment Holding will provide guarantees up to 80% of the loan value for the maximum value of loans for small and medium-sized enterprises slightly exceeding 1 million euros. The term of the loan is supposed to be at least 3 years in duration and a maximum of 4 years in duration. One of the key parameters of the loan under this program is that it includes an automatic deferral of principal and interest repayments for 12 months after the first drawdown of funds from the loan. There is no security collateral needed in order to receive this loan, since there is the guarantee provided by the Slovak Investment Holding. There are multiple criteria which are needed to be met in order to qualify for this type of subsidy. They are rather complex, but to name the most important ones, in order to qualify, your business has to have been impacted by the coronavirus situation. So there has to be some sort of negative impact on your business. And the aim of the loan is to either attract job growth or to achieve job retention. Therefore, it is not aimed at the repayment or refinancing of all the loans, but rather to provide working capital, rather to provide funds for acquisition of tangible and intangible assets, rather to cover events or cover liabilities that occurred as a result of the coronavirus situation that were beyond the control of the entrepreneur. So basically, these are the key terms, but as discussed, there are other conditions that need to be fulfilled. Michal, could you please move to the next slide?
If I may, we checked so far, 38 million was allocated on this program, with the expected increase by additional 57 million. We know that there's also division geographically, and only up to 5% was allocated for the companies with a seat in Bratislava. So this measure is aimed at the companies outside, not residing, but with a seat outside of Bratislava. And also, we forgot to mention, it's not aimed only at SMEs who are in business already for 1 year. This is also available to startups. So which is a big difference with SZRB and EXIMBANKA loans. And I understand also there are some programs, but you will talk about that, you know, for startups.
Yes, I will follow about this in the next slide. So to continue regarding the state guarantee for bank loans, which was unveiled last Thursday, the detailed parameters of this program are yet to be presented by the Ministry of Finance. The detailed parameters are supposed to be published somewhere this week, but it has not yet happened as of now. The parameters which you are able to see in the presentations are what was publicized last week, but they might be subject to change. The main point of this loan program is that these loans will be available also for larger companies. Therefore, there will not be the restriction of it being for SMEs. So it will be available also for larger entrepreneurs, and the amounts of loans that could be taken under this program are significantly higher. Basically, to sum up the criteria that are available now, it will be Slovak Investment Holding and EXIMBANKA will provide the guarantees for commercial loans, which will be issued by commercial banks. These guarantees will be up to 90% of the amount for loans below 2 million and up to 80% of principal amount for loans above 2 million. It is shared with the previous program that these loans cannot be used for the repayment of all the loans, but as I said, more criteria are to be clarified further. The interest rate for these loans is supposed to be significantly below what was market standard. It is supposed to be somewhere around 3.9% per annum for loans up to 2 million euros in amount and 1.9% for larger loans. However, this is subject to confirmation. Moreover, the main criteria, as discussed previously, are very similar to the other programs. There are supposed to be no debts older than 90 days on mandatory social and health insurance contributions, no bankruptcy or restructuring proceedings initiated, and the concerned business cannot be a work agency or an employment broker. However, the banks may publish their own criteria, and the most important point is that there is no legal entitlement for this type of loan. It is supposed to be discretionary for the bank to evaluate the applicant for such loans. So if I may continue with the EU funding program on the next slide. The European Union has unveiled a large amount of economic programs aimed at combating the fallout of economic impacts of the coronavirus situation. We provided a link for an overview of all available programs in the EU and Middle East at the end of this presentation, but mainly to give an introduction to the most important programs. I selected a few. Basically, the system is two-tier. So there are programs which the EU will distribute via member states. So there is the Coronavirus Response Investment Initiative, which is currently supposed to have the value of 102 billion euros, and these funds will be distributed via member states aimed at promoting job retention, aimed at promoting policies combating the negative economic fallout of the coronavirus. And then there are measures that are going to be distributed directly either via EU institutions or via financial intermediaries based in EU countries. These measures will be distributed either by the European Fund for Strategic Investments or the European Investment Bank. I will talk about them later in the next slide. But to name another two important programs of the EU, it is also has been unveiled that the European Central Bank will provide a pandemic emergency purchase program in the total amount of 750 billion. And also the EU will provide funding and assistance for countries under consideration to join the EU. But to talk about the most important programs that will be available directly from the EU to entrepreneurs based in European countries, so could you please next slide? So the two main programs, which have existed already previously, but their terms have been adjusted in order to reflect the coronavirus situation, are provided by the European Fund for Strategic Investments. The first program is called COSME, and it is aimed at SMEs. The conditions are available on the slide, and currently it is provided via financial intermediaries in all European countries. For Slovakia, we understand that the financial intermediary is Československá obchodná banka. The second program is called INOFIN SME Guarantee Facility, which is also provided by financial intermediaries in European countries. And the main positive of this economic program is that it will be also available to companies that are fast growing, that are startups that are not so long in existence. Therefore, the financial criteria in order to fulfill for this program are significantly different than to the previous programs.
We checked yesterday how many financial intermediaries are there for the COSME and INOFIN program of the European Investment Fund. And we found that only SZRB has products that are available and coming from this loan guarantee fund. Frankly speaking, we don't know why there is only one bank in Slovakia involved. There's maybe question, for the banks for further discussion. So that's probably something to think about, because there's really a lot of capital available for SMEs under these programs. As you could know, all these programs are actually coming from some EU schemes and state aid schemes, because all these subsidies provided by state, have to be approved by the Commission as a state aid measures. There are also, individual state aid measures to bail out, certain companies. We have Air France, the case in France. And we were going actually yesterday through these measures, financial measures available in other EU countries. And what we kind of lacked for Slovakia were measures or programs that would be aimed, for example, for innovation in healthcare. There are programs available like that. There's also EU funding available for these particularly focused healthcare programs. There are also programs in support of the startups. There are convertible loans programs, for example, in France. So I would say that these kind of features are also missing in the scheme that Slovakia is available. I believe the kind of useful material is really the summary of financial measures. We included the link at the end of our presentation. If you have time, just run through that, because obviously, if you are a member of a group that has entities in various other jurisdictions, you may apply, for these subsidies in other jurisdictions. So it really is. I think it's worth running through that. And what else would we add? I think we finished a little bit earlier than we expected. So I think if I may touch upon maybe another measure that Renatus Kolar will speak on another webinar of AmCham, but if I could briefly touch upon that, because this measure could also provide some breathing space for the entities, could help them with the cash flow. And that's the temporary protection of entrepreneurs that should start applying from the May 12th. This period should be this temporary protection should be available until the end of September. 1st of October should be the end date, unless it's extended by the end of the year 2020. And obviously there are some criteria, who can apply for this temporary protection. They are, I mean, defined in a kind of ambiguous and vague manner, because it says you have to have substantial drop in revenues, substantial issues with the payment, which obviously it doesn't say what the term substantial means. But basically, once you qualify and you are granted this temporary protection, you may use some discretion as to how and who you will pay in first, because you can give preference to certain creditors, which are kind of inevitable for your day-to-day operation. And I believe it may create a certain criticism, because obviously some debtors can abuse this discretion they have. And again, the way it's defined in the law and phrased, it's quite ambiguous and quite vague, and provides really a lot of interpretation options. But but hopefully not all entrepreneurs and companies will be abusing this tool, and this again can provide some breathing space and improve cash flow and alleviate the pressure a little bit. I think we came to an end. There's our contact details. If you would like to help with the applications, whether for deferrals or for the loans, we are available, because as I said, not all of the details are available on website. For Slovenská záručná rozvojová banka, for example, you have to file the application for the loan at the regional branches of SZRB, which I don't find very unfortunate, because it should be all available online. Online applications. We have the EAID, so we are able to communicate online and to verify identity. What I also find kind of maybe a tricky is that obviously these banks already have certain portfolio of their clients, which already went through the KYC and LMA procedure, and obviously for those clients it will be easier to kind of undergo the entire process and get the loan. For the new clients, I believe it might be an issue. Because as I said, both two banks do not have this online system, electronic communication at such a level as for example, other commercial banks. So there may be some struggle. They may struggle with these KYC procedures for new clients, and this may kind of prolong the entire approval process. But hopefully the money will be available to applicants soon. And you will not have to wait many months, until the new liquidity comes.
Silvia, Richard, thank you very much for the initial presentation. I would like to ask the floor for any questions that our participants might have regarding anything that was mentioned, whether it's the Slovak Investment Holding scheme or the EU funds and tools. So please feel free either to ask a question through the chat, and then I can read it or the speakers can read it themselves, or if you prefer to unmute your microphone and ask a question verbally. I'll maybe start with the question, and so I can also give you more time to think about possible questions. You mentioned when talking about the different EU support schemes that obviously has to be processed by a Slovak bank or an institution in the respective member state. And you mentioned that so far only ČSOB started offering these products and schemes. What do you think can be done or should be done to involve more banks and to encourage them to offer these schemes so they can support their business clients?
Frankly speaking, Michal, I was asking the same question. Why has been historically only ČSOB involved in this program, because we know that, for example, if there's some framework facility available by EBRD, more banks are involved. And yeah, I asked the same question, and I unfortunately I don't know the answer. Why is that? Maybe because of the criteria. I think there are not, that other banks would not qualify. Whether that maybe is very complicated, negotiation procedure with the AIF, that I don't know. Maybe if some of the participant is from the bank, you mentioned that there will be some banks participating on this webinar. Maybe they could comment on that and try to also clarify for us.
So do we have anybody from the participants that maybe like to comment on this? So why do you think there's so far lack of cooperating financial institutions in Slovakia? I think we have some members from the banking industry on the call. Okay, not yet. Maybe I would like to ask one more question, coming back to the support schemes of EXIMBANKA and Slovenská záručná rozvojová banka, Slovak Guarantee and Development Bank. Well, looking at the criteria, it seems like obviously it's trying to support the companies that are struggling because of the sharp decline in their turnover or in their financial results over the last month or two. What if a company is doing reasonably comparable with last year's time, March, April, but because of the COVID crisis is expecting a serious downfall in results and in turnover in the upcoming months, let's say June and July. So looking to the very near future, what would you suggest such a company? Are there any financial schemes available for companies like this that are not experiencing the hardships yet, but because of the COVID crisis will necessarily have to cut their operations or will experience downfall?
I might have missed, the beginning of the question, because I was reading the chat question on SZRB and EXIMBANKA loans. Yeah, but I think I would use basically all these instruments. I would ask for the deferral of the loan. I would ask, if I'm an SME, I would ask for these interest-free loans, for the working capital, because it's really I don't have to provide any collateral. There's a state that is guaranteeing the loan up to 80% of the principal. So if I fail, it should not be really such a hassle for me. Because obviously, these deferrals on commercial loans, you don't get your credit scoring does not deteriorate after applying, so it doesn't really do you harm. And I would really plan, because obviously this depends. You can't be in delay with payments. You still have to have cash available to pay your installments. So I would kind of calculate the cash flow. When will be the date when I will not have money to cover the liabilities, and just to do the planning in such a way that, okay, I will not be more than 30 days in delay. I will not be more than 180 days in delay with payments of the social and health insurance contributions, and file then, because obviously if I do, and if I miss that thresholds, 180 days, 30 days, I will not be given these measures. Granted. I don't know whether was that answer sufficient, Michal, or
Sure. Thanks for the insight. Yes. So there are different. There's a mixture of measures, of course. There are two questions so far. One, I'll just like to read it so that everybody can hear it. There's a question whether there will be special agreement that needs to be signed between either EXIMBANKA or SZRB and the specific commercial bank for the guarantee program to work, or whether the client just asks for the loan at the commercial bank and then separately requests guarantee for the loan at EXIMBANKA or SZRB. Whether either EXIMBANKA or SZRB require collateral sharing agreement with the commercial bank. Maybe if you can reflect on that.
The way we understand it is that SZRB and EXIMBANKA loans are separate loans, and on those loans, the Ministry of Finance is actually providing the the state guarantee up to 80%, and also does the interest rate subsidy. The commercial banks and loans and state guarantee for those loans, that's administered through the Slovak Investment Holding and their program, and they have a kind of a separate guarantee agreement, which is signed between National Development Fund and the commercial banks, and that covers the guarantee provided by the state and the Ministry of this, the transportation involved, guarantee provided by the fund for the commercial bank loans. So these are two separate kind of programs. SZRB and EXIMBANKA loans have nothing to do with commercial bank loans because they are their own. You know, that's the loans that SZRB and EXIMBANKA are providing. Commercial banks, they do their loans up to 1.18 million, and that's a state guarantee under the anti-corona guarantee program of the Slovak Investment Holding. We have to separate these two. So I don't know whether that's clear now how that works. So there's really no special agreement between SZRB, EXIMBANKA, and the commercial banks because those are separate programs. Maybe under the new program which was announced last week and which we do not know the parameters yet. There, EXIMBANKA will be providing the guarantee for the loans of the commercial banks, but we don't know the parameters yet. We don't know how this instrument will work. So I can't answer for that program the question now.
Okay, thank you for. There's one more question from Mr. Koleda. Whether you have any information on how soon the 500 million euro guarantees provided by the Ministry of Finance or Slovak government for loans from commercial banks will come to effect?
We understand that this is under this program, which was announced last week, and actually some details were published already. So that's the one that we don't know the details yet. We know just some parameters of that instrument, but not all of them. Yeah, unfortunately, we can't give more details than we know because not more has been published on the Ministry of Finance website. Neither National Bank, neither EXIMBANKA has more information on Slovak Investment Holding. This is what we were able to dig out, so far. So we can do some update. We will monitor this closely. So Mr. Koleda is free to drop us an email, and we will monitor and let him know once these details are available. We will definitely alert him on that.
Thank you. There's another question from Marek Hrubčo. Hello, you briefly mentioned individual state aid schemes from the European Union to big companies such as Air France in France. Are there any examples of from some other countries that are closer to us from the region, for example, Czech Republic or Poland? Also, whether you can maybe provide more information on or resources on this topic.
We can. We have some information. At the end, there is a link, for the our summary. There's European Union section. And there is this individual state aid. It's called like temporary framework for state aid. I haven't really studied in the detail, which I apologize for. But there are 3 French support schemes. There's a Danish guarantee scheme, loan promotion programs, Italian. Okay, and these individuals, let me see.
But basically, it is to be noted that all the schemes are still evolving. Like new measures are being introduced regularly, and our Brussels-based colleagues are actively monitoring all the latest developments, and the information is regularly updated on the link which is provided at the end of our presentation. So this link provides a detailed overview of all financial support schemes across the EU and the Middle East, and also on the support scheme available and that are prepared or are already in effect by the EU, and it is being regularly updated. So this is a very valuable source which you can monitor the different countries or directly at the EU level?
I haven't researched it separate. I think it was only this Air France example, but I'm sure there will be other companies who will be saved and bailed out by the states, and that's just kind of a standard state aid application process for individual state aid provided. So we are again happy to provide detailed information on the criteria in cooperation with our Brussels colleague. There is mechanism for that, and we can also dig for the Czech Republic and Poland if there are examples. Then let Mr. Hrubca know that we will be happy to do that.
Thank you. Is anybody willing to ask a question verbally? Please feel free to unmute your microphone and ask a question yourself. There have been several questions so far through the chat version, and I also changed the slides to the slide with the link. So obviously, after the webinar, the recording of the webinar will be published on our website, so you can access, or your colleagues can access as well, the useful content and the link for further information that Silvia and Richard provided for you. So that will be available after the webinar.
Because I understand, this is a maze. And those who can actually navigate themselves, through the various measures, and not just these financial ones, but also for the employees on the salaries. And it's really a challenging task, to keep up to speed and monitor, because the conditions are changing every day. The new measures are being introduced on a constant basis. So yeah, I mean, if we can help to navigate you through that would be perfect. As I said, our Brussels colleagues are involved. Our Czech team is actually working with the Ministry of Finance on implementation of the measures. So if you have some Czech-related questions, we can help with those as well. I do some promo here, but yeah, I know how important it is to act quickly, because all these resources are limited. So you have to act quickly, yeah, and not to lose time.
So do we have any further questions from the participants?
Maybe what to add, and why is this summary also important, is that you can have several, these instruments applying to you. So you can, it's not like one you qualify, one in Denmark or in Germany, you can't ask for the one in Slovakia. You can do them in conjunction, so it's in combination. So one doesn't exclude the other. So that's why to have a picture and know what is available. It's in all the countries where you are present is important. So just keep that in mind. So that you are not disqualified. Once you apply in Slovakia, that you can't apply in the Czech Republic for that.
Thank you, Silvia. That's especially important to note for members, those members that are part of a larger structure and that have their affiliates in other EU member states. And of course, there are many members in AmCham like that are international companies with operations in different countries. Good. Seems like there are no further questions from the audience in the chat. Maybe one last chance for anybody to ask a question through the microphone. And if not, maybe there is space for last remarks from you, Silvia or Richard, if there's anything else you would like to add.
Not really, but I would really, because as I said, we had the webinar last week, and we asked the companies, have you applied, for some measures, so for some loans, and the answer was no. And when we said, okay, so what's the reason? Oh, we don't know, we don't understand, we don't know what's available. So I would like to ask maybe the participants, and they can comment only briefly, whether they have already applied for any of the measures available for the loans. Consider this as an option that would really help them, or whether they consider these instruments to be useless, toothless, not sufficient enough, because I think that feedback is very important, not to us, but to kind of to government, to understand whether they are distributing the funds, properly, whether the conditions are set wisely and reasonably, so that it actually the net actually captures as many SMEs as possible. That would be it is interested for me to know what's kind of the view of the entrepreneurs, of the companies on this.
That's a good question. Anyone would like to comment on behalf of your company? What's your company's approach towards the schemes? We have different companies on the call. Smaller companies, some larger companies.
And we can do it also verbally. You don't have to write. You just unmute yourself, and we are giving feedback also to Ministry of Finance, which we work with on some other measures, and that would be helpful to kind of raise this to their attention.
Can you hear me? This is Juraj Pavlović from Takium.
Please go ahead, Juraj.
We do, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for.
I have kind of a general point. Our company operates both in California and here in Bratislava, and we have been, I think, quite successful here in Bratislava. I mean, the only feedback I would give to the Ministry of Economy is too much paperwork. I mean, I understand, and please, let's all step back and ask ourselves whether during the times we are going through right now, is perfect audit among the top, one or two priorities that a country should have. What I find extremely frustrating is that all of this has long lead times, very long forms, huge amount of verification, which basically, I mean, we all know verification is done in order to make sure people don't cheat. A much better way would be to simply say, look, we have a potential crisis on our hands. There are a lot of small businessmen, there are a lot of companies that are suffering. They lost income, lost revenue. Why don't they simply distribute the money and do post facto verification? I know you are laughing. Post facto verification.
I fully agree with you, Mr. Pavlović. I fully agree with you.
I mean, it's just very frustrating because I'm comparing it to, let's say, the US approach. That within 2 weeks, send money to companies. Sure, there was probably a certain percentage of fraud. There was probably a certain percentage of people who took advantage of it. But is that really the biggest problem right now, to catch every single person who's trying to take advantage of the situation to get, some business? And that would be my feedback. And look, I know you cannot do anything about it. We cannot do anything about it. But the approach that most of the government organizations, and including EU, have in Europe, which is to verify, make sure that everything is 100% certified, notarized, blah, blah, it has to be signed. I mean, we work with organizations that don't take electronic copies. They want to have a piece of paper notarized and all that stuff. Now, that has its place in the society. But during the time of Corona, I just keep on asking myself every day I go to work, is that the number one priority we should be having, to catch every potential fraudster or thief? Or should we be simply focusing on fixing the economy, getting it going, and then look back? Okay, you can always audit people later and make sure that the information they provided was correct. So, and by the way, the amount of paperwork that's required for most of this stuff, I mean, a lot of people will simply walk away and shut down the business because it's just too much. And there's absolutely no certainty that at the end anything's going to come out of it. So I'm mostly criticizing the overall approach. I know you guys cannot do anything about it.
We can help you with the paperwork, so you can focus on the business.
Look,
you can delegate the paperwork to us, and
my whole point is that paperwork should not be as extensive as it is. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help us. It doesn't help the government. All it does is, it's create a huge amount of roadblocks, and we will all suffer because of that. 6 months later, people will look back and say, "Oh my God, we filled up tons of paperwork, very little was done, and
I agree because also, to me, for example, this postponement of payments on loans, on facilities, I view it as pretty straightforward. What struck me was that it's 30 days, for the bank to respond, whether your application is correct and is not missing anything. And those applications are pretty straightforward. You don't have to submit financial statements. You just really tick off some declaration that it applies, and nobody's, extensively verifying anything. But then you have additional 30 days for a bank to respond. So I think at the end of the day, you can waiting for the money that you for the money that you don't have to spend on interest payments and use them some other way. For me, it's too long. You don't have the time. And also, I don't know, we do have no deadlines for SZRB and EXIMBANKA to actually grant you the loan. That's their verification, and because everything is kind of done in this analogous way, not online. EXIMBANKA do have some email address for that you can directly communicate, and they communicate pretty promptly. It's in my opinion, it shouldn't be. It should be very flexible, online. Everything you should be able to do in a couple of days. And this is what we should aim at. And I fully agree that we can do ex post verification, but that's probably, as I work in insolvency, and I know that whenever we try to introduce some flexibility in the law, be it with the personal insolvencies, now with this temporary protection, everybody was like yelling that no, don't do that, because there will be hundreds of entrepreneurs abusing this and really just walking away from the creditors' obligations. And yeah, but that's probably Slovak reality. And unfortunately, this is the mindset we have when we
my point, that there always will be people abusing any system. The question is, during good times, yeah, you want to catch every single one of them. But during times that we are going through today, is that, I would even say it's not even among the top 10 priorities for society right now to catch every potential entrepreneur who is trying to abuse the system. You can always catch them later. There's always a way to go back 6 months, 18 months from now and check every single thing and make sure those people didn't put in incorrect information. I just feel like we have it upside down, that we have to restart the economy, and we have to get people back to work. And longer this takes, yeah, at the end, what are people going to say? We managed not to have a single cheater in Slovakia. Well, that's a great thing to tell people when you have 15-20% unemployment. Anyway, it's just my little. Yeah, I just feel like there should be a more flexible approach, much faster, and look, we are not entrepreneurs because we are waking up in the morning trying to cheat. So most people are. I'm sure there are some, but it just feels very, very silly. It almost feels, to be honest with you, like a 19th century paper system that's being applied in 21st century. Anyway, I'll stop.
Yeah, thank you very much for this feedback. That's very useful, and we hope that it reaches beyond beyond us and AmCham and this audience.
Thank you.
If I may ask, I see that Mr. Nešpor is participating. Mr. Nešpor, sorry for kind of abusing the system, but can you comment on these measures from the perspective of startups? Because I really see that completely insufficient. That there should be really particular instruments aimed at as convertible loans, or some bonds that the banks can invest into, or state. What do you think about that?
Yeah, thank you for asking the question. First, to your previous question, we see these measures as advantages. We are looking at it at a couple of these guarantee schemes ourselves for Crowdberry, and also our portfolio companies are looking at them and already applying. So it is a big help on one side. On the other side, the prerequisite for a company to get a state-backed loan are set pretty high for regular and early stage startups. So there is a piece missing to support very early stage innovative companies. Ones that either started right now, or don't have the history, or don't have the revenues to show for in the past to get these state-backed funds. So I completely agree that there is a gap to be filled for startup support, much as we can see it abroad, where there is big funds being put up by the state or even private players to support the innovation ecosystem.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nestor. It's appreciated.
Good. Thank you for your comments. We're running out of time. It's a few minutes past midday. If maybe Silvia and Richard, do you have any last comments before we end the webinar?
Not really. Just want to wish people enjoy their lunch, because it's a lunchtime. So yeah, good luck, with the applications and with this bumpy, road. Hopefully the constraints will be eased a little bit by the measures that you will qualify for that, and then we both, not both, that we all kind of overcome this period with the less damage, as possible. I know it's kind of very optimistic, but I'm an optimist. Yeah, let's keep the fingers crossed to all of us.
So thank you very much, Silvia, Richard. Just few remarks from our side. Thank you for your attention. As we mentioned, the recording will be available on our website in the event section under this webinar's information. So you can come back to it later. You can review the links that Silvia and Richard posted in their presentation. And I would also like to point your attention to some of the upcoming webinars we're organizing next week and the week after. Information is available on our website, and we'll be also sending more email invitations in the upcoming days. We'll also host a webinar with the representatives of the European Commission and European Parliament next Friday, where we'll have the chance to learn more about specific programs and specific support from the European institutions as well. So that's just a short teaser. And thank you once again, and enjoy your lunches. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.